Hey, everybody, welcome to Monday. If you're watching us live, you already know that. Except it seems that people are finding that the days all run together. But it is Monday. There's my public service announcement for you today. Welcome. Glad you're here. Kevin Eichenberry here doing another Facebook Live talking about all things remote work. And again, like I did on Friday, I have a guest. And I'm so glad to have this guest here. Her name is Maura Thomas. We were just talking about how we first connected. We've never actually met in person, have we? I didn't think so. I didn't remember that. Anyway, I read one of her books. She'll talk about that in a minute. And I just asked her, how did we connect? She goes, you read one of my books, put it on your blog, and then I reached out. And that is exactly how it happened. And we've been connected now for 4 or 5 years, probably, something in that vicinity.
At least, yeah.
And we share a passion for productivity and figuring out how to do that. And the fact that neither of us believe that time is something you can manage. And so I wanted to have her on. She's written an article that's going to be in HBR soon. We're going to give you a little preview of some of that. But in general, Maura and I are just going to talk about productivity in the world of remote work, and we're going to call it advanced strategies. How about that, Maura? How does that sound?
Sounds great.
I like it. So if you're wherever you're joining us from, you can comment and you can let us know if you have questions, because we want your questions. And I will have to check here every once in a while. We have I said Facebook Live, and I meant all live. Thank you, Maura. I meant Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, all of the above. We're in all those places right now. And if you send me your questions, we can see them, except if you're on LinkedIn, which we can't see them, but we have the lovely and talented Marissa, who is monitoring that and will send me your questions if you have them. And we're excited to have you. So advanced strategies for productivity as we live in a world where everyone's working from home. And so before we get started, real quick, if you haven't seen this site, this is where we have put everything related to remote work and remote leadership. We've been doing it there for almost 5 weeks. You can go to kevineichenberry.com/COVID-19 to get a ton of free resources that we're adding to every day. In fact, this will eventually be there for your viewing pleasure, but you don't need that because you're here now. Maura, one of the things that, productivity is an evergreen topic. We always are worried about how to be more productive, but from your perspective today, right, at the end of April 2020, what are the biggest challenges that you're finding and your clients are finding around productivity right now?
Challenges to productivity, I really don't think we can put them in one major bucket, and it hasn't changed. The biggest challenge to our productivity is distraction. We have now different kinds of distractions than we used to have, but to me, it's less about where you work than about how you work. And so I teach an approach to productivity that I call attention management as the new path rather than time management, which was the old path, because we can't manage our time. If distraction is our biggest problem, attention management is the solution.
And they can go there, right there. I think I'll make that a prettier link for people to see. You can go right there and you can get an assessment to help you with that. Is that correct?
It is. You can assess your own attention management skills. This might be a new idea to some people, but it's not that different than what it sounds like, right? Managing your attention is the antidote to distraction. So if you want some steps about where to get started, you can take that assessment.
Okay, so back to the question itself. Here's the thing. You said that the distractions are different. So let's be specific. Talk about one of the distractions perhaps that people are experiencing that they might not have at work before, and how would you specifically help them deal with that?
Sure.
What advice would you have?
Yeah. Again, one of our biggest sources of distraction is other people. And we still have that distraction now, right? It's other people at work or it's other people at home. Now, it might be a little bit easier to manage at work because your coworkers will understand, oh, I'm trying to focus now, please don't interrupt me, but your 4-year-old doesn't. And so distractions of other people, but when those are tiny people who don't necessarily understand grown-up work, it makes it a lot harder. So managing those, really, it really depends on your own situation. So we have people who don't have any kids working at home. We have people who live alone. We have people who have kids but have another caretaker in the house. And we have people who are single parents working by themselves. So how you manage that depends on your home situation. But I can run down a few, like one suggestion for each of those situations.
Let's do it.
Sound good?
Let's do it. So if I'm home alone, but not alone. I'm home alone with 2 or 3 kids in school, and they are not high school, so I can't just, let them roam freely around the house. Like, what's your advice for that person?
Well, let me just start by saying that for single parents with little kids at home, I feel for you, because this must be so challenging. How can you, it's almost impossible to take care of young children and try to get any work done. And so the first piece of advice I have for you is to cut yourself some slack and understand that this is not going to be the same. You're not going to have the same level of productivity that you can have when you are at the office or when you're home alone without little kids. You have to adjust your expectations. I know a lot of people are trying to take care of their kids all day and then work all night, and that's just not sustainable. You're not taking care of yourself, and so you're going to have you're going to compound the challenges, because lack of sleep causes all other issues. So that's my best piece of advice. If you're a single parent with little kids at home, cut yourself some slack, show yourself some compassion, lower your expectations, and take care of yourself.
I would tell you this too, that if you go to this link, you can see about 10 days ago, Maura, I did a live event where I had a couple of educators with me, and we really talked about this whole idea. We talked about juggling the balls that you can't drop. And we talked mostly about trying to be a worker, a parent, and a teacher all at once, right? So we talked a lot about this. That whole recording is there. You can go to kevinikenberry.com/juggling, and you can get a downloadable tool that we created as a result of that. But you're exactly right. You're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to grant yourself some grace and think that through, get some clear expectations, perhaps with the teachers as well in some cases, right? And that's all different based on the state and what the expectations are now. But let's say, Maura, that I'm a single person living alone in my apartment. I don't have any distractions, do I? Like, what are my distractions? What's your advice for me?
If you're not working, if you're not used to working from home, then probably you have a set of distractions from your home environment that you're not used to. The video game console is over there. The Netflix is on the TV. The dog is so excited that you're home. The cat keeps walking back and forth over your computer keyboard. The laundry's calling to you. The dishwasher needs to be emptied. All of that stuff are the new kinds of challenges that we have. So my advice for that is to use those home distractions as a reward. So work for some period of time, 30 minutes, an hour, set a timer or a specific number of tasks. Decide, this is what I'm going to do for the next period of time. And when these are done, then I get to go play with the dog for 20 minutes, or then I get to go take a walk around the block, or then I get to go empty the dishwasher.
This is the first time ever that people have decided that emptying the dishwasher is a reward. I'm just going to say, I'm glad that you started with the other things first, because I'm not sure that the dishwasher feels like a reward, but your point is exactly right. Schedule an amount of time. So do you have, as an expert, like your thought about how long we ought to go before we take the break, whether the break is to do the dishwasher or go for the walk or just get up? What's that time where we should try to stay really focused and then shift?
It really depends on the level of what I call brain power momentum you need to do the task. If you're doing really heavy, thoughtful, brain power momentum kind of work that takes all your concentration, that can be super exhausting. And so I would say shorter chunks. Studies show somewhere between 20 minutes and 75 minutes, but that's not really helpful because it's a pretty big range, right? Exactly. I would say if it's really heavy duty brain work, on the shorter side. If it's less intensive brain work, maybe you're reading through emails, or maybe you're just sort of editing a document or entering numbers into a spreadsheet, not super heavy duty brain work, then you could probably go a little longer.
Okay, cool. So we've really started to talk about this, but I have been maintaining that remote work is different now. during COVID-19, during a shutdown, than it was before. What are your thoughts about that? What's different, if anything, about it from your perspective now than it was a couple of months ago?
Well, now we have, for some people, it's not different at all, right? For some people, they always worked from home and they don't have any kids. And so it's really no different for them, but perhaps the people that we interact with. For people who have kids, it's vastly different because usually your kids are in daycare or at school, whether you work at home or at work. We have, we have all these other things that we have to handle now, and your coworkers, even if your situation isn't different, your coworker situation is really different. And so taking that into account is challenging because people are working when they can, and when they can might not be 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, right? So staying connected to people is a real challenge now.
I want to vote for 8 to 4 because I don't think I've ever only worked 8 to 4, but I like that. I'm going to make that my goal, Maura, to do 8 to 4.
Kevin, work-life balance is very important. Should we talk about work-life balance, Kevin?
Well, we can. Well, I think it's different. I think that's totally different now than it was. And maybe especially for people, for everybody, as you just said, but also for people who are working from home for the first time. Like, so how do we deal with this? Because it is important to figure that out. And what is your advice for us here?
Yeah, in my second book, Work Without Walls, where I talked a lot about telecommuting, and I made a distinction between telecommuting and remote work. And so to me, telecommuting was, I don't go to the office. I work from home. That is my normal situation. That's everybody now. Different than what I used to term remote work, which was I work in an office all day, but then I also check my email or call into the office or do other work from the soccer field and from my house and from, the coffee shop or wherever. Remote work was in addition to my 40 hours in the office, but now it's kind of all the same thing. And
there's no soccer game to go to, by the way.
Then there's no soccer game to go to. Exactly. There's nowhere to go, right? Except the grocery store. It's like the big outing is the grocery store, right? Woohoo! Yeah. But the point that I made in the book is the same as it is now. You can't work all around the clock. You need to do other things besides work. Downtime is really important. And especially for those of us who are knowledge workers, by knowledge worker, I mean somebody whose job depends on their brain power, right? Ideas, relationships, creativity, innovation, problem solving. If you're a knowledge worker, how your brain is functioning is critical to your job, and your brain won't function well if you're working too much. And if you want to know what too much is, studies show somewhere between 50 and 55 hours. After that is too much.
So if I'm working from home and, I don't have a dedicated office to work from home, so I'm working at the kitchen table or I'm working in the bedroom. I did hear a client the other day saying that someone got on a conference call and he was laying on his bed. I'm like, this is just making me sad right there. In and of itself, I'm like, if you have to be in your bedroom, at least sit on the bed, right? Anyway, but so we don't need that. I apologize for that vision, everybody. But, if I don't have a dedicated spot, I mean, the laptop is going to beckon me. It's hard. What's your advice to folks that can't have a dedicated space in their living area to put the work? And because visually the bleed between the two is always there. What's your advice for that?
Yeah, it's such a great question. We need to have physical indicators, right? Physical cues when it's work time versus when it's not work time. So if all you need for your work is essentially your laptop, then that's pretty easy. When work is done, close your laptop, put it away where you can't see it. Put it out of sight, put it in a cabinet, put it in a closet, put it in a room that you don't go in, put it somewhere where you can't see it. And that is the indicator work is over. Now, if you're the kind of person who needs more stuff, got laptops and pads of paper and markers and a whiteboard and, excuse me, all kinds of different supplies to do your job. And it's difficult to pack all that stuff away at the end of the day and then get it all out again. In that case, I suggest a blanket. Close your laptop and then throw a blanket over all the stuff. Move it to one side of the table, throw a blanket over it, and that's the cue. Work is over. When the blanket comes off, it's time to work again.
Because even in the old days, which means 2 months ago, right? Even if, we had routines about leaving the office. And even though maybe we struggled by still getting on with this thing and such, the reality is that distance helped us with that. And I think both of those are really, really good pieces of advice around this, because it's so very real. It's exactly what people are dealing with. And I just want to make another comment. If you're that parent who's also teaching, this isn't going to help with the 4-year-old, but with the 3rd grader, 4th grader, 5th grader, 6th grader, 7th grader, etc. You can also use visual clues there, like a sign that says mom's working, dad's working. Okay. Like, so for the next, and I love the tell Siri 75 minutes or whatever. And when Siri goes off, now we're going to be together, right? So whether kids are doing homework, kids are reading, or even if kids are playing, for that time until the alarm goes off. Yep. You got to let mom alone unless there's actually a fire. Like if you smell smoke, come on in. Otherwise, so you can still create some demarcation lines, there. Of course, if you have a toddler, that's going to be, or someone in diapers, that's different. But for many of you, you can use that same, hook those two things together that Maura said, and they can be useful.
Yes, and I've got some funny, lighthearted do not disturb signs that people could download to use at maurathomas.com/do not disturb. I think there's hyphens, do-not-disturb.
I love that. So somewhere I thought I had just a Maura Thomas, but I'm going to just put this up here like this again. Replace the assessment with do-not-disturb.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
MauraThomas.com. I thought I had just a Maura Thomas, but apparently I don't. So I apologize for that. MauraThomas.com/do-not-disturb.
Yes.
I think I remember seeing those, but I had forgotten them. That's really, really excellent. So in this article that I got the chance to preview, that's going to run in HBR, Harvard Business Review, you talked about something called communication hours, because we've talked about this idea of not everyone's working at the same time. And I've been talking to leaders now for 6 weeks that you may need to be flexible because you got folks with different needs. I've got 5 members of my team that are trying to be parents at home while working. And even though they were used to working remotely, they've got this other dynamic as well. So you talk about this idea of communication hours. Say more about that.
Yeah, I think we can't define work hours, right? Because people need to work whenever they feel like they can work. And to a certain extent, we have all this flex time now, right? Which is a good thing. I work when I feel like I need to work, but not everybody's work schedule is going to be the same. And so if everybody on your team has a different work schedule, then and which means that everybody's working at different hours, which means everybody's communicating at different hours, which means everybody's sending stuff in Slack and email and leaving voicemails and all these kind of things, then it could feel like we're working around the clock. Because if somebody's emailing me or somebody's messaging me in Slack or instant message, text message, then I need to be available to answer them. So I'm hearing, especially from single people who are telling me, I'm working from the moment my eyes open until my head hits the pillow, because all people are working all these different hours. So communication hours as opposed to work hours. You work whenever you feel like you need to work. But for the leaders, you should define for your company what are the hours for communication. Now, of course, for emergencies are a different story. But maybe your communication hours are like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so when you're working during those times, feel free to email, Slack, text, voicemail, whatever you need to do outside those hours. Work if you need to work, but hold your communication. So use delay send, for example, in your email. Have everybody put their Slack on do not disturb so that if somebody is sending a Slack, at least it's not interrupting people during those off communication hours. Better to hold those communications in your team communication channels until it is work hours. But if you define the communication hours, then that can prevent everybody from feeling like I need to be working all the time because my boss just emailed me. It's midnight, but boss is working, so I better be working. So communication hours can help that.
So as a boss who works at strange times and used to get on airplanes, remember when we got on airplanes? And sometimes I would work all day, then I'd be in an airport before a red-eye flight home or whatever, and then I might send email then. But the thing is, even then, I told the team very clearly, just because I'm sending it does not mean you have to respond now, right? And so what Maura's saying is the best answer, but even if for whatever reason you're not doing that, you've got to set crystal clear expectations. And I have had people, and I said, nope, you just need to know that's when I had to send them because that's the only chance I had to send them. And so it's not as good as what Maura's suggesting, but it's certainly a clear expectation on that is far better than no communication about it at all.
Absolutely.
I know you don't like what I just said because I could see it in your voice.
I think you're exactly right. Clear communication is really important. The problem is people are much more likely to model what you do than to listen to what you say. And so, yes, you might be emailing at night because you're about to get on a red eye today, but next week it might just be because you're working late and because somebody else might be working late, or who knows what hours people are going to be working, especially now. And so it's much better to model the behavior that you want to see. Work whenever you feel like you need to work. Just don't send the messages. Delay send is a better idea.
Yeah. In my case, what I do is I just don't send them. I just make a list. These are the things I need to send, and I do something different. I just do different work if that's what I'm doing.
Or put them in your draft folder and send them the next morning, whatever you need to do.
Exactly right. I think we might have a question. Let me see. I do not have a question, but I have a comment. A colleague of mine is wearing his name tag at home to signal to his middle school age kids that he's working. Again, that's a perfect way. Like whatever works, right? If the name tag says, hey, when dad's wearing the name tag, he's working, that's a perfect way to do it, right? No issues. The big key is have a clear conversation with your family, with those around you, with your spouse. If you're both working from home, like, hey, I need you, if you're going to be on the conference call, I need to be on headphones, or whatever it is. Let's get this all clear so that, clear expectations is going to help a whole lot. And the sooner we do it, the better. What else? What say you about that?
Yeah, it's really important at work too, because when we're at work, especially in an open office, people don't necessarily know that you've got that brain power momentum built up, right? They don't know that your head's down in this thing. I mean, yeah, we're sitting at our computer, but we always are when we're at work. So those signals that you're using for your kids, super important when you go back to work as well. It's so helpful to have a do not disturb signal at work. That's why I made those signs. To say, please, unless it's an emergency, don't interrupt me now, because otherwise you're going to get interrupted every couple of minutes and you're never going to be able to build up that brain power momentum that's important and necessary to do your best work.
So along that line, you can do that. And we've been doing that for years on my team. I make it totally clear to everybody. If you need to work on goal work, you need to be doing that highly focused work. You don't need to be interrupted. Then everyone lets everybody know that. We try really hard to not reach out to them during that time. And you talked about Slack. We happen to use Slack. It has the ability to put notes on there. Hey, I'm not available right now, right? And so that can apply when you're remote or when you're in. And so figuring out how to manage your important time, would you call that brain power momentum time? Yes, brain power momentum time. It's what I call cardiologist time. It's the stuff that you wouldn't cancel. If you had a cardiologist appointment, you wouldn't cancel it, right? So if you have work that you got to get done, you're not going to cancel it either, because whatever people do is, oh, well, it was just work. I was just going to work on my stuff. Yeah, I can have a meeting now. Wrong. Like, I got to lock that time in, and everyone on the team has to be able to do that. And they got to tell everybody else so that they can help them honor it, right? To your point.
That's right. I love that. What would need that cardiologist time? I love that.
So there you go. We don't have any comments or any questions that have come in. I'm going to put this up and let you talk about this again, about this assessment. And I'm going to put up the prettier one, like that. This assessment that you have that people can get that will help them with their attention management. Tell us a little bit more about that again.
Sure. My latest book came out in September. It's called Attention Management: How to Create Success and Gain Productivity Every Day. And
it's a beautiful book with a teal cover, and I don't know why I didn't think to put mine here so I could show it to you. But
I should have mine. I should have mine in front of me. But it is. It's a quick read. You're right. What I love about it's from a line called Ignite Reads, and Ignite Reads are designed to spark impact in just 1 hour. So they're designed to get the core ideas of the topic in an hour or less. And the pages are thick and the cover's pretty and it's hardcover and it's a great book for giving. But the topic is attention management, because I believe that attention management is the new path to productivity. Stop thinking about how you manage your time and instead start thinking about how you manage your attention, and your productivity will improve. And so I created an assessment to go along with the book about, so that you can understand. Thank you, Sean. My husband just brought me a copy of the book. So the assessment is for you to determine how well you currently manage your attention, and give you some steps to get started and to help you improve.
So very valuable. The book is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. So before we go, one last thing. You may have noticed I just changed the cover of a book up at the top. So you may know that I wrote a book called co-wrote a book called The Long Distance Leader. The book that's coming next is called The Long Distance Teammate: How to Remain Engaged and Connected While Working Anywhere. And while you can't get the book yet, some of the ideas from the book can be actually deeper and more content than in the book in a product that we call 12 Weeks to Becoming a Great Remote Teammate. You can learn more about that at a huge current discount at remoteleadershipinstitute.com/12 weeks. You can join us there. You can go to see Maura at her website. Anything else you want to tell them about how they can connect with you before we go?
No, what I want to tell them is that I'm a huge fan of your work. I recommend it to my leader clients all the time. Remote leading, just all your resources, you're everywhere. Your channel, it doesn't matter how you want to consume your work, whether you want to watch videos or listen or read. Great resources, and I would highly recommend people visit all of your sites to consume all of that content.
Thank you, Maura. I appreciate that. Put some of your attention on Kevin is what she's saying. I like the sound of that. But mostly, I want to thank you, Maura, for being here, and all of you who joined us. Thank you as well. If you found it valuable and you're listening, I have 2 requests for you. Number 1, to think about what you got that you're going to use. So my favorite question is, now what? What are you going to do with this? Please take some action. You got all sorts of actionable ideas, even if you were only here a short time. And secondly, if you found it valuable, share it. Let other people know so they can get the chance to get some of the same ideas that you got as well. Maura, thank you for being here again. It was a pleasure to have you. Thanks for playing with me on this on the last minute on Friday. I said, hey, I had this idea. She goes, sure. And so thanks for doing that. And all of you, thanks for being here. And I'll close the way I'm closing everything these days. Be well, be safe, be remarkable. We'll see you all soon.